Listen, it certainly is. Look at her own words in the New York Times from the tapes. It's in the New York Times, June 11. She said, I'm an affirmative action baby.
Yes.
I got into Princeton on affirmative action. I got into Yale. I didn't have the scores that these other kids did. How did she get on Yale Law Review? Affirmative action. How did she get on the federal bench by Moynihan? Moynihan needs an Hispanic woman, just like Barack Obama needs an Hispanic woman. That is not the criteria we ought to use, Rachel,
but Pat,
for Supreme Court justices, conservative or liberal. That's why I opposed Harriet Mier. I said, I know she's going to vote with me. She's a good Christian woman. She's probably a fine lawyer, but she's not Supreme Court material, and neither is Sonia Sotomayor. And I think you know that, Rachel.
I don't know that at all. And I would say that if you and I agree that what our country needs is to be able to choose from the largest possible pool of talent in order to be able to pick the people who are going to have to function at the highest level so that our country can compete and that our country can do all the hard things we need to do, I would hope that you would see that picking 108 out of 110 white justices of the Supreme Court means that other people aren't actually being appropriately considered. And the reason that you have affirmative action is that you recognize that the fact that people were discriminated against for hundreds of years in this country means that you've sort of gamed the system unless you give other people a leg up. You've gamed the system by putting them in the best schools and the best jobs. Hold on, I'd let you talk for a long time.
She was put into the best schools. She was put into the best schools.
That's right, she was.
Affirmative action, not because of ability, Rachel. She was put there, she said herself, because of where she came from. She's an Hispanic woman. She's from Puerto Rico. That's why she was passed over other students who applied there with better scores who were denied the right to go to Princeton.
Do you think that she got the grades that she got at Princeton on the basis of affirmative action, too?
I think what they do in the Ivy League, and you know it as well as I do, about half the class graduates cum laude these days.
How'd you do at Georgetown compared
to
how she did at Princeton?
I'll tell you, I graduated higher in my high school, I will bet, or as high as she did, and I'll certainly say in Georgetown I did, and I'll tell you, I would match my test scores against her, but I'm not qualified for the United States Supreme Court.
But Pat, for you to argue that there's no basis on which the United States benefits from having Hispanics be among the people who we choose the best and brightest from defies belief. The idea that you think we're best served by only choosing from among 99.5% white people for these jobs, I don't believe you believe it, Pat.
Hold on. I believe everybody should get a chance to excel and be on the United States Supreme Court. But if I look at the U.S. track team in the Olympics and they're all black folks, I don't automatically assume it's discrimination. I will say, I think maybe those are the fastest guys we got. That maybe they're the fastest guys in the country. Maybe they're the fastest in the world. If they're all, our Olympic team in hockey is 8 white guys from Minnesota, I don't assume discrimination. Why do you assume discrimination simply because you got one component on the Supreme Court? Where's the genius you think who's a woman and a feminist who ought to be on that Supreme Court? Go for her. Don't go for an affirmative action person you know was picked because she's a Latina and because she's a woman.
Pat, when I look at the United States Supreme Court and I see 108 out of 110 white people, I see 108 out of 110 men, I don't look at that and think, God, white guys are naturally better at this type of work than the other people who aren't getting these jobs. I don't think that way. And I want to hear you. I would love to hear your answer as to whether or not you think that is what explains it too. Because I think what the more obvious explanation is that you have to be a white guy in order to get considered for these jobs, and has been true since the dawn of time in this country. That's starting to break up now so that we can tap a bigger pool of talent. You should be happy about that for your country, Pat.
I do.